What's up, everybody? Welcome to UFC Roundup. I'm here with Michael Chiesa. UFC 271 is this Saturday. Michael, you're a busy man. I hear you're going to be there. You're going to be all right?
Yeah, I will be all right, and I will be up at 8:50 in the morning Central Time for the UFC weigh-in show live on YouTube, as always. So make sure you go to the UFC YouTube channel, tune in at 8:50. Going to be a bunch of debauchery, and I'm probably going to do some challenges that I'm not really good at, and should be a good time. Yeah, maybe a shoey. Who knows what's going to happen? Texas is crazy, but I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to going back.
This is Friday, right? Friday before the weigh-ins.
Friday for the weigh-ins at 8:50 in the morning.
8:50.
10 minutes before the fighters take the scale.
Get up early. Check it out. If you're there, go see Chiesa.
Yeah, come on. Stop by.
But let's get right into this, man. This is an amazing rematch between Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker. Are going to bring it back. A lot of different circumstances surrounding this one. Obviously, the first one was just a masterclass for Israel Adesanya and his counter-striking, big knockout, bloodying the face of the champion Robert Whittaker. Down in Australia, humongous, massive crowd in attendance for that one. But again, we're in Texas, so we got another big crowd coming to this one. What are your initial thoughts on this rematch, and what does Whittaker have to do differently this time around?
Well, I will say Texas will be electric. I remember just recently this last year when I fought Vicente Luque in Houston, that place was loud. That was one of the louder arenas I fought at in the United States. So I know the crowd's going to bring the heat as always. The fans always show up on fight night, especially for a pay-per-view. But that fight, that first fight, man, it was really, it didn't look like the same Robert Whittaker. He just was kind of barreling in on a straight line. Really, it kind of looked like he was headhunting the challenger, Israel Adesanya. And, he got caught at the end of that first round, and it could have been all but over with just 10 more seconds. That fight could have been done in the first. But, Israel, that truly was the moment when he established this run that he's been on. He's a lot of people are trying to compare him to the great Anderson Silva. That's another conversation in itself. But I'm very excited for this rematch because I don't think it's going to be the same fight we saw before. I think that we're going to see Robert Whittaker stick to the skills that he possesses that made him so dangerous, particularly the off timing, throwing the double strikes. And when I say the double strike, I love the way Robert will throw his right straight and throw the right kick over his shoulder. He does a good job masking his strikes, blending them all together. So, like I said, that first fight, I just don't think that was the Robert Whittaker that we've known to grow and understand as a fighter during his UFC run. So I'm excited to see him get back to what he does best.
Yeah, man. And he seemed tired, right? We want to talk about the mental state that these fighters have to be in to perform on that level, your hometown. Now, I know Izzy, is living in New Zealand, so it was kind of a home game slightly for him, where a lot of New Zealanders and the Kiwis were going to come over there as well. But that's Whittaker's backyard there, where he's at now. And he just talked to us in fighter meetings. I remember him saying he was over it. He needed a break. He needed to spend time with his family. He needed to not think about being the champion and preparing for yet another training camp. This is one of those sports. It's individual. Yes, there's teams. Yes, there's people around us. But it's on your mind because you are the one who's stepping into that octagon. You are the one who's going to be facing that guy who wants to knock you out, who wants to choke you unconscious. For people that have never been involved in a combat sport, I don't care if it's boxing, wrestling, mixed martial arts, the fact that there's one individual out there that you've got to think about for weeks, sometimes for these champions, months on end, and see them several times knowing that you're about to go in there, it's draining. So to hear Whittaker took a break, hung out with the family, played his video games. Now he's hungry again. Now he's happy. Now he doesn't feel like he's got to put anything on. He wants to be in there. He wants to be the best, and he wants to compete. He doesn't think as much about the belt. He just thinks about beating the next person in front of him. So, Michael, what I want to say to you is, where is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the mental preparation for a lot of these fighters? How important is it? Is there any examples you can give of things you've done or times where maybe your mental state wasn't quite there and it really showed itself in the octagon?
If I've said it once, Paul, I've said it a million times. This sport is 99% mental. It's 1% physical. And that's crazy to think because we always talk about how hard we train and these strenuous camps we put in and the emphasis that we put on the work definitely can overshadow the mental side of the sport. But any competitor will say the same thing, Paul. You know as well as I do, this sport is 99% mental. And if you are not mentally in the fight, because I know Robert Whittaker is a guy, he's a family man. This isn't a guy that's not out on the weekends, no, not screwing around. You know, he's always in good shape. This is a guy that takes his camp serious. He was on a very good run on the tail end of back-to-back fights with Yoel Romero. Those fights were grueling. You know, this guy knows how to train when you're out there beating guys like that. But he just wasn't there mentally, man. This is a guy that needed to spend time with his family, needed to reset, recharge the batteries. And you kind of hear that in this sport a lot, Paul, where guys will seek out some type of, whether it's like a sports psychologist or some type of mental coach, and that's a good tactic to go about it. And I'm not sure, you've been in those fighter meetings. I don't know the exact details on everything that Robert did to get himself right if he brought somebody in to help him, but I can relate to being in that situation, not to the level that Robert Whittaker's at, but I had a tough 2018 for a few reasons, and I definitely had to seek out. Fortunately, in my family, my Uncle Joe's been a sports psychologist for a very, very long time. Works for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and has always been a good person I can lean on when I need some clarity. I need to kind of sort through some thoughts that are kind of holding me back from being at my physical best. But there was a stretch in 2018 where I was kind of going through a little bit, and it's good. Sometimes you just got to make yourself vulnerable. You don't always got to be the tough guy. You don't always got to be the rigid fighter. If you are, and when you try to stuff things down by doing that and ignore the mental side of the sport and the things that are kind of weighing on you, they can come back to bite you in the butt. So I think Robert did the right thing, obviously, because since then, 3-0, beat Darren Till, beat Jared Cannonier, who's also on the card. And then his last fight against Kelvin Gastelum, it was the best version of Whittaker we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, no, it's so important to try to address any kind of mental health issues or things that are bringing you down, whether it's for sport or just in personal life. And that just goes to say, everybody out there, if you're having any issues, first of all, go talk to somebody, But he's got a few tests ahead of him, Whittaker, to see where that mental state is, because yes, he's 3-0 since that fight, and he's beaten freaking amazing people. But now we're in Houston, right? There's a huge crowd again. It's for the belt. It's Izzy who's knocked him out and bloodied his face in front of his home country. We got the press conference today, right? We got the weigh-ins. So we'll see. We'll see a lot about Robert Whittaker on Thursday to see how that press conference handles him. And if he's cool as a cucumber there and he seems to have the right responses without getting frustrated, I think we'll see a different Whittaker in there on Saturday night. But to be in there with Izzy, who knows this, he knows he got under his skin.
I was just going to say, Paul, we're talking about Whittaker and how he wasn't himself on fight night, and and him doing what he had to do to get his mentality back to the level it needs to be at for him to compete at his best. But is that even going to be enough?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I think some people, that was such a shock to everybody in hindsight. It's like with each fight that passes that Robert has that he wins, like once he got the Till fight under his belt, it's like, okay, he's looking a little different. Beats Cannonier, and we're like, oh, wow, okay. He's starting to get his swagger back. And then you see the Kelvin Gastelum fight and you're like, holy cow, this guy is firing on all cylinders. So it kind of highlights what he was saying coming out of that first Israel Adesanya fight. But is it enough? I mean, Israel has just been dominant as of late. He is so dominant that he tried to dabble his feet in the 205-pound division against the ultra tough Jan Blachowicz. And even though things didn't go his way, it's still just that, to me, that also highlights how great he is. Like, I'm gonna let you middleweights kind of figure it out. I'm starching you guys. I'm walking through you a little bit. I'm gonna go try and fight this guy up a weight class. I'll be back when you guys figure it out. So, is it gonna be enough? That remains to be seen. We'll find out on Saturday.
And what's interesting too is that we're talking so much about Whittaker, but on the other side, Adesanya, who was the one who performed, who was the one who kind of went into his backyard and pulled that off. He does thrive under these circumstances. We can't forget that too, right? We're talking a lot about Bobby Knuckles over here because he's got the rematch and he's been knocked out that first time around. But we got to give the praise and the shine to Israel Adesanya. Now, I feel like he's not getting quite as much of that as he should, because of that Jan Blachowicz fight, where it's like, guys, let's not forget, sometimes it doesn't work out for everybody when you move up a weight class, when you try to do that. And we talk about the blueprint, right? Oh, now everybody's got the blueprint. Whittaker's got to go in there. He's got to wrestle him. He's got to get top position. It's just how you beat Adesanya. It's like, well, that's not necessarily true because there was a huge weight difference there between those two men. It's not to say that the smaller Whittaker, who's actually used to fight at 170 pounds moving up, he doesn't wrestle the same way. He doesn't have the same weight or the same top pressure. I disagree with that sentiment that that's how he's got to win. I think he does need to mix in either level changes or add in takedowns, but by no means do I think that his only path to victory is to go in there and continuously take down Adesanya. If he's patient and he's not fighting with that chip on his shoulder as much as he was the first time around, I think we'll see much cleaner striking. But if he mixes in a few takedowns, what it's going to get Izzy guessing is the threat of the takedown. And Rob, as we were talking about earlier, Michael, those off punches that he throws from weird angles as he dips his head and comes back up, and he uses head kicks from there as well. If he can get into that rhythm, I think that's the best case scenario for Whittaker to go in there and win.
Yeah, it's definitely the best case scenario for Whittaker, but it just, when you talk about Israel Adesanya, it's like there's more to it than just the how well he performed the first fight. It's something you just alluded to, how he steps up in these huge moments. I mean, obviously the pressure got to Robert Whittaker in Melbourne in the first fight, and Izzy was this guy was as calm as can be. He has been in all the circumstances that he's fought under, and the caliber of competition that he's faced, I do believe, has been a little stiffer. I mean, Darren Till, Cannonier, and Gastelum, phenomenal fighters, but this guy's going through Vittori, what he did to Paulo Costa, which we've all seen how durable he is. There's nothing, even if the best Robert shows up, I think that going back to what we were talking about before with the mental side of the sport, obviously Israel's as mentally sound as a fighter could possibly be. He's very confident. He's got a swagger about him, and I just don't feel like there's anything anybody can do, even in a fight, to fracture it. You go back to the fight with Kelvin Gastelum, and that was a tough fight, and he still had his swagger. He's still in between rounds was saying, giving himself affirmations visibly, like you can see him talking to himself before the rounds are starting.
I think is what he said.
He's that confident. He's a guy that can keep himself in a fight under any circumstance. So you have to take that into consideration where, he hasn't had to change anything about him or his style or his life. He has just been that dominant of a champion and on a phenomenal run at 185 pounds.
Yeah. I think he was saying to himself too, I think that clip, which, has given me chills before, when he's like holding the cage and I think he's saying, I'm prepared to die. I'm prepared to die.
Yeah.
That moment.
Dude, that alone, Paul, it's like that guy. There's nothing you can do to shake him in there. That guy, he is like, that guy is as mentally strong as someone can be. Because Paul, you've been in way tougher fights than I have. I'm giving you a ton of credit. That Dan Hooker fight, you know what it's like to be in the fire, guns blazing with somebody. I'm not just saying this to like toot your horn, but I don't know what it's like to be in that hard of a 5-round fight when both guys are really laying it on the line. And just, granted, I don't know what that's like, but seeing Izzy say that to himself, I'm like, what are this? You guys are built from a different, you guys are cut from a different cloth. But yeah, Israel's as mentally sound as a fighter can possibly be. And I think that that'll be a big key player for him in this fight.
Yeah. And for that reason, I think that the outcome, it's going to be much different this time around. We'll get to predictions in a little bit, but as far as just how it's going to go, I think we both agree on this one that Whittaker is going to be a different beast, but Izzy is more than capable of doing what he did the first time around. But I think it's not going to be as easy from this time. I think we're going to see a 5th round. I think we're possibly going to go to a decision. And for myself, if Whittaker shows up the way I think he's going to, and if Izzy is the man that I know that he is based on prior performances, I think we're going to see a dogfight for 5 rounds. I think we're even going to see a fight that some people might be going one way or the other. And I can't wait for it, because I think these guys are destined to have one of those kind of fights. I mean, they both got such fantastic skills, and Izzy always working on the wrestling. If Whittaker can't get him down when he needs to at those certain points, they're going to end up slugging it out. And if he's more patient and has the striking that we know he has, I think it's going to be I think it has the ability to be a legendary fight. Or if they're tentative against each other, could be a point fight. And that's what I'm hoping it isn't. I'm leaning the other way.
I don't think that'll happen. I think, getting into the X's and O's a little bit, there's been such an emphasis on the mental side of the sport, kind of the intangible things that there's no way you can train these types of things. They're outside of the X's and O's and the skill stuff. Let's talk about the skills. I think Whittaker's going to fight laterally more. And I think that with him working in the lateral movement, he's going to have some success. But I think that also plays into Israel's style as well, because the more Robert moves laterally, the more he could be corralling himself into kicks. This is such a skilled striker. This is what he's most proficient at. And you never know when with a striker like Israel, there's certain people's styles and the way they come at him that Izzy is their kryptonite. Yep. So I'm excited to see if the adjustments that Robert makes are enough, and I'm excited to see Izzy here stateside, and I'm excited to be in the crowd. I mean, yeah, I'm spoiled. I got to pinch myself sometimes. It's a blessing. So I'm looking forward to this fight for sure, and I'm sure the fans are. And like you said, this could be a legendary fight. I mean, this rivalry, the Australia versus New Zealand. There's so many things about this fight stylistically and in the intangible side of things that makes this fight so interesting.
Yeah, isn't Whittaker born? Wasn't he born in New Zealand?
I'm not sure. We should ask Ricci.
Ricci?
Obviously,
this is me. Confirm that.
This is me nonchalantly asking Ricci to give us the cue. It's correct.
Yeah, so it's but living in Australia for a while now, I believe. But anyway, another middleweight bout that we have to talk about. Obviously, it's not the co-main event on Saturday night, but it's one of the featured bouts. We got Brunson taking on Jared Cannonier. Now, both of these guys have taken L's to the guys in the main event. So very interesting matchup to see how things play out. And we got to talk about this fight. Then we also got to talk about the title implications on who is next to be facing the middleweight champion. I think there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle going to be at work here on Saturday night at 271, with the main event being middleweights and then two guys that have fought them, depending on how it plays out. But as far as the matchup between Brunson and Cannonier, very interesting. I mean, Derek Brunson you want to talk about somebody who's really revamped their career, has just been shutting down all the hype trains that you can possibly throw at this dude. Blonde Brunson, baby. Blonde Brunson.
Yeah, Blonde Brunson. He's a different animal.
It's amazing. I mean, he loves it too. You see him tweeting about it all the time. That the memes that he's been put into as Blonde Brunson's hilarious.
Doing the thing with his invisible laps.
But man, this is a great fight. Jared Cannonier is a guy he's right there, just a few steps away from this title shot. And Izzy has mentioned that he has interest in fighting him based on his style and who he is as a person. I don't know with this one. Who do you think? What do you think?
It's going into both guys, obviously, Derek Brunson. I mean, the guy's like revamped his career 3 times. You just can't doubt the guy. Yeah. He's just been on a tear, and he attributes that a lot to being down at Sanford MMA. I mean, Brunson has his own gym back home. I believe he lives in North Carolina. Ricci, I'm leaning on you for that one as well.
Correct. Wilmington.
Yeah, he has his own gym back in North Carolina. So he said he was training for a lot of these fights with like casual people that have 9-to-5 jobs and aren't full-time fighters, and kind of trying to have to put together the pieces himself for his camp. So he goes down to Sanford, and obviously you're under Henry Hoof, Kami Barzini, Greg Jones. The stable of training partners is unreal. So there's a reason why he's had this great resurgence. And you got Jared Cannonier, which this guy makes his debut at heavyweight. And if you've ever met Jared Cannonier and you see him on Fight Week, you can tell that guy is dense. He's physically a different type of specimen. He has tremendous power. And not only is that from a skill standpoint, but I think that he has God-given gifts that make him have the power that he possesses at 185 pounds. Just a dense, strong individual. And we obviously know Brunson's going to want to take this fight to the ground. Not really anybody, unless you're Robert Whittaker, wants to stand with Jared Cannonier at 185 pounds. So I think that we're going to see Brunson try to put this fight on the floor. But, that could prove to be problematic because, like I said, Jared Cannonier is a physical specimen, and he's going to be well prepared being down at the lab with John Crouch and the guys that he's been with for a long time in Glendale. So it's interesting. It's tough to call. It's definitely tough to call. I can predict how I think the fight's going to take place. I just can't. I don't really have my thumb on who I think is going to win.
Give me a prediction
maybe later on. Give me your prediction. You wanted me to put me on the spot?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right,
I'll let you go.
I'm going to go first. Listen, first of all,
okay.
I want to preface this because if either of these gentlemen see this podcast, which they should,
yeah, that's the toughest part about this. Oh man,
right? I really like. Sorry, I hold my hotel key as if
yeah, don't put the number on there. So I'm looking for you. I'll use my Best Buy card.
I think I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier. I think he's going to get taken down. I think he might get controlled for a while, but I think he's got the touch. I just think he's got the touch. I think if they stand for too long, he's got knockout power himself, no doubt. Brunson, don't come at me with it. I don't want it. But if I got to pick, and that is our job, Michael, I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier in this one.
You got to make those hard decisions, man. And what's funny, Paul, is I remember being picked against in the RDA fight, and I couldn't wait to get to the desk and be like, you guys all picked against me and throw this big fuss.
Yeah.
And then now it's happened to me being on the desk, and I'm like, oh man, this is tough. Poor guys. I hate this part of my job. I love both of these fighters, but I'm going to go opposite of you, Paul. I think that Derek Brunson, just on this run that he's been on, I just think he's truly unlocked the potential that maybe he's kind of held back for so long, kind of running his own camps and doing his own thing. And I think the gas tank is going to play a huge role in it. Look, Cannonier is always in good shape. I've never seen him gas out in a fight, but I mean, Brunson's a dog. Like that wrestling pace and that grind that he wants to put on these guys. You have to have a different type of conditioning and ability to grind through those grueling types of fights. So I think Brunson's going to grind him out to a 3-round decision. 29-28.
Hey,
unanimous.
It could happen. That's why I was all
unanimous across the board. No Sal D'Amatos. We'll get to that later, maybe.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we are getting to that later.
Yeah, no Sal D'Amatos will be in Houston, Texas, hopefully.
Well, yeah, I know the judging is getting freaking ridiculous. But anyway, we got to talk about the co-main event since we skipped it for a second. Derek Lewis back in his hometown, taking on Tai Tuivasa. Different circumstances, though. We were talking about his record kind of at home, but a little less pressure again for Derek Lewis here. Not a main title fight, nothing like that going on. He gets 3 rounds. He doesn't have to worry about 5 rounds. And as we know, he does not like 5-round fights. He makes
he hates them.
Clear. That being said, do you think it is a different fight for him? Do you think he's going to be able to perform how he does normally in the Apex or when he's not in his hometown?
Man, I've actually worked a lot of Derek Lewis fights. And he does very well at the Apex. I mean, every death show I've worked when he's fought at the Apex, he's won. And he's won in emphatic fashion. I was there when he fought Lexi Olnick. I was there when he just fought Dawkins. And historically, the 3 times he's fought in Houston in the UFC, his last 2 fights, the last 2 fights that he had in Houston weren't his greatest. He beat Ilir Latifi in a fight that I don't feel like he won. And even there after the fight, he came out and said that he was not a huge fan of fighting in Houston. A lot of people, I mean, Paul, have you ever fought? You fought in Philly, but have you ever fought a UFC fight in Philadelphia?
No.
Have you ever had that?
No.
So when I fought Seattle, my second UFC fight against Jorge Masvidal, it is when you fight at home, it's like everybody's coming out of the woodwork wanting something from you, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I can't imagine when you're Derek Lewis headed into a title fight in Houston, Texas, like that guy probably had a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he didn't fight his best. But when you make the money Derek Lewis does, and they offer you a co-main event when you don't have to go 5 rounds with a dance partner that's going to want to stand in front of you and kind of play into your strengths, yeah, why not take it?
Yeah. I mean, totally different. Great fight for him. A guy that, like you said, is going to want to stand, is going to want to trade. But I that's not enough, Michael. I need a prediction as well.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Once again, here we go. I picked against Derek before and had him come to the desk. And I'm not out for blood with Derek Lewis. I like Derek Lewis a lot. I think he's a tremendous fighter. He's a tremendous character. I love his coach. But I'm going with Tai Tuivasa. I mean, Ty's my boy. He was kind enough to kind of tour guide me one night in Australia, and I had a blast with him on Fight Island. And
he's the wild man,
outside of the personal stuff, the guy's on a 4-fight win streak, 4 finishes. Yeah. I mean, he was on the brink of leaving the UFC, not at his own choice. Yeah. Like he was on a bit of a skid, and he's had a little resurgence himself. You know, I know he's spending some time training with Gokhan Saki, which if you're a stand-up guy and you're training with Gokhan Saki, I mean, it's only up from there. So him rattling off 4 straight wins and getting his opportunity to get into the upper echelon of the heavyweight division, it's very warranted. So This isn't me just picking because I like the guy on a personal level. I just think that he's definitely got some good momentum behind him going into this
It
fight.
sounds like you don't want to lose your opportunity to go party with him, but we'll move on.
No, I have an early flight home on Sunday. I don't want to miss the Super Bowl. I got to get home to watch the Super Bowl with my fiance and the dogs and eat 7-layer dip and
sounds delicious.
Little smokies and just the essential layout you would have for a Super Bowl. I can't miss that, Paul.
No, I don't do it. And I don't want you to miss that, Michael.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm going to go Derek Lewis. I feel like he's due for a good performance in his hometown. I feel like his confidence and his power is fresh on his mind coming off the Dawkins fight. So again, this is another tough one. It could go either way, and it's heavyweight, so of course it could go either way. But for the sake of picking it, I'm going to go with my man Derek Lewis. And before we move on to something else, we got to give a big shout out to Roxanne Modafferi, who has decided to hang it up after this next fight. And God bless her. They didn't give her anything easy to handle on her way out. They, it's like they gave her extra work to handle before she had to leave the office.
Yeah, when it comes to Roxanne Modafferi, Paul, I've spent time on the mats with her training at Syndicate in Las Vegas, and she is just like, whatever she does to get herself going, she is next level. And I really mean this. She is next level when it comes to mental toughness. Like she will push herself through crazy training sessions back to back to back when she's been injured and when she's been hurt. And you got to factor in her age and how many fights she's had. Like the age of a fighter is kind of quantified when you pair it up with how many fights they've had. Mm-hmm. And she's had a lot of fights. I'm pretty sure this is her 50th fight in her entire career. At 39 years old, I mean, she's fairly old in MMA years, but nonetheless, she's super tough. She's never said no to any opponent. I mean, at one point in time, she was upset, and as anybody would be upset about losing a title fight. But she was upset. She wanted to fight Valentina Shevchenko. She wanted to beat Nico Montano and go on and fight Valentina. She wanted to fight the toughest person in her weight class, and she's always been like that. So kudos to her. I don't feel like this is a fix. Like they're going to use Roxanne to put Casey over, to promote Casey because she gets that highlight signature win. I just think this is a case where Roxanne, this is just who she is. She wants to fight top caliber competition, and she's not going to shy away from a fight, even if it's her last one.
Yeah, she's an absolute legend.
Or I should say, not shy away from a tough fight for her last one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And she's 40, I think it's 46 fights, not including the tough fights, which.
So the tough fights makes it, I think that
would make it 49 or 50. Yeah.
Those are fights, Paul. Those are fights.
Some of those, of course, I agree.
Two of the toughest fights of my career aren't even on my record. That's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is sort of BS that's kind of how that plays out. But she's an absolute legend. She is one of the sweetest people you will ever meet in your entire life, and always seems to be in a positive attitude. It just never anything bothering her. She's great, fun. So Roxanne, enjoy retirement, but go kick ass before you do that and give them help.
And speaking of attitude and speaking of teammates, my guy Sean Strickland, my favorite round 6 sparring partner. Dude, huge win over Jack Hermanson this weekend. And in good timing. I mean, there's no better time to win a main event in the middleweight division than right before UFC 271 when you got the title on the line.
Yeah.
On top of the fact what is being billed, which never holds true all the time, the number one contender fight at middleweight between Cannonier and Brunson, which you know as well as I do, that can change if both guys don't have the performance that the bosses and the powers that be feel is good enough to justify putting you in a title fight. So good on Sean Strickland to go out there and have a dominant win. For those that didn't watch, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. That 47-48 number you're looking at couldn't be any further from the truth. Sal D'Amato should not have a job as a judge. That fight was one-way traffic. I'm still surprised Hermanson even won a round. I was there. I called the fights. I watched it very attentively.
Yes.
I don't think Sean Strickland lost a round. So I want to know why he even lost a round to judges 1 and 3. And I want to ask Sal D'Amato, what fight were you watching? Yeah, my gosh, Paul, you know as well as I do, like half of our salary is on the line. Like you can't have a judge that is too inept to pay attention to the fight. What are you watching? I want to know, Sal D'Amato, if you are watching UFC Roundup. And if anybody on this that's watching this knows Sal D'Amato, I want you to send him the link so he gets this question. Tell me why you scored it 48-47. Yeah. Oh, my God. That was bad. That was terrible.
I'll find you.
Yeah, Sal. This is going to come back to bite me in the ass next time I fight in Vegas.
I can't wait until he's calling your next when he's judging you.
Oh, dude.
I'm gonna have to.
What the heck? That was terrible, though, Paul. I mean?
Yeah, it was.
All jokes aside, though, I mean, you can't have that. It's especially with how much is on the line for a guy in Sean Strickland.
Hey, you're talking to a guy who's pretty much had split decision losses. Now, luckily for me, there's only one that's this egregious, and it's the RDA split decision, which obviously I lost that match, and I know. Jack didn't complain. He knows he didn't win that fight either. And listen, Jack Hermanson, shout out to him. The dude brings it every time. He gave him hell. He tried to hit an unhittable target. Strickland has got to be one of the hardest middleweights to hit.
Oh, no, it's a statistic. It's a statistic. He is the least hit middleweight in middleweight history.
Yeah.
Like the guy does not get touched.
And yet he stands right in front of you. It's insane. So big shout out to Strickland. Obviously, he's creating his own brand, man. He really is putting himself in the forefront of this title run where, again, on Saturday night, if things don't go that well for that Cannonier fight, then Brunson and Cannonier, they could weed themselves out. Strickland could end up sliding into that title fight if Izzy wins or Whittaker wins and they say, yeah, this guy's new. This is fresh blood. Let's go for it.
Yeah, it's a weird situation where it depends. Like when you look at the main event for 271, kind of backtracking a little bit, when we talked about this before we started filming the show, how it's going to be a perfect storm as to who gets the next title fight. Because let's say Brunson beats Cannonier, Izzy beats Whittaker, and Izzy's just like, I've already beat you and knocked you out. There's no reason for me to fight you again next. Well, it's not going to be Costa because he's coming off a loss. Ain't going to be Vettori because he just fought him. There's Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland's got a mouth on him. So if opportunity opens up, he's going to start talking, and it's the other way around as well. Whittaker has already beat both guys. He beat Brunson and Cannonier. So what if he wins the title and is like, next? Actually, that Sean Strickland guy looked good. He just beat Hermanson. I'll fight him. So Sean in a great position because nothing is guaranteed in this sport until you sign the contract and you get into the octagon on the date on the contract. So good for him. He's in a great position.
Absolutely in a great position. The middleweight division, we seem to not talk about it for a little bit, and then boom, we start getting these almost tournament-like setups. It's one of those.
It really is like a tournament. It always is. It's always the middleweight tournament. Everything is all about the middleweight tournament.
We've said that.
I feel like we started the middleweight tournament, Paul. We founded that on this show. That was us.
Don't you guys forget, okay? Roundup's been here slowly but surely, putting along like the little engine that could, okay? Before you know it.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be running this podcast.
We're going to be running this game.
Guys.
We're going to be running the game. We're going to be running the podcast game. Come on, let's go.
Anyway, we got to go. Speaking of needing fans, let's go to the fan questions and bring in our esteemed producer, Michael Harici.
All right.
Richie boy.
Fan questions are back.
Paisan.
First one. Yes, fellow Paisan. This one's more fight related. Is it better going first or second for the ring walk? So basically, is it better to be blue or red corner?
So it depends on who you are, I think, right? Because red corner is usually reserved for if we're talking rankings, the higher ranking person, or obviously the champion will always walk second. But early on, you actually get more time if you're in the blue corner and you get into the octagon, you get to talk to your corner for a second. If you're red corner, you're in a good position, but it's kind of a whirlwind. You get in there, buffs in there, you're getting announced, you're ready to go right away. But I still, historically, I've always wanted to be red corner. But I've always had better success in the blue corner. But I'm still going to say red corner. It means you're usually I don't know.
It means you're the higher ranked guy,
A team and B team kind of situation there.
Yeah, and each side has its pluses and minuses. Like I remember when I walked out first before RDA, and usually I like Stranglehold to be the last thing I hear before I fight. Something about it.
Yeah, exactly. You hear their music. You hear their music last.
But this time against RDA, he came walking out to like the training montage song from Rocky 2.
No, I think it's Kumite from Bloodsport.
No, for my fight, it was Rocky.
Oh,
he came out to the Rocky 2 montage song for the training part of the movie. And listen, when I was a kid, you know how many times I watched that performance wrestling practice? So I was like, dude, you're just throwing some gas on the fire. Spin that stuff. But for me, Paul, each one has its perks. But I like to be in the red corner because you get the black walkout shirt. You get the black jacket. I don't like the white jacket. The walkout gear, I'm not a fan of the white jacket. So when you're red corner, you're always the black, gear.
Red corner gets to choose as well. Like you get to choose.
Yeah, you get first choice with your colors. So that's kind of a big deal for me. So yeah, I like red.
Anyway, red corner, we agree.
Sorry, that last one was from Lee Skinner. I should have shouted him out, but I did not.
Thanks, Lee Skinner.
This next one from Patty. Since the Olympics are going on, the winter
Patty the Patty.
That's London. What Olympic moment from the past personally impressed or inspired or blew you away? God bless.
For me, it's not there's not like a pivotal moment where like a particular athlete just had like a particular performance. It's more the sports I follow. Like anytime Shaun White's had success at the Olympics, I've always enjoyed those moments in this Winter Olympics right now. So it seems fitting. In Olympic wrestling, I just get a thrill out of watching these guys compete once every 4 years. So I wasn't going to say it, but I mean, when Henry Cejudo won the gold medal, he was a huge underdog. And I'm sure you guys have all heard the story about his Olympic run. Maybe he's never told it, Paul. I don't know if you know it, but Henry Cejudo did win an Olympic gold medal. It was pretty cool. He was a pretty big underdog. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. No, of course. Hey, you're a wrestler. That's a big moment whenever USA does well in wrestling competition. I mean, they're battling some bad dudes out there in the Summer Olympics when it comes to wrestling. So
actually, I take it back. I just remembered my favorite Olympic moment, hands down, when Gable Steveson just won the gold medal this year, because he did it. He scored 4 points in like less than 10 seconds to come back and win the match by a point. And he did it with you have to watch the match, Paul. He literally gets the takedown as the clock hits 0 and won by a point. And that was pretty cool. I can't believe that. Step aside Henry Cejudo, Gable Steveson.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
For me, I mean, I'm going to nerd out again. Obviously, everybody knows that I've been super interested in triathlon. And obviously, this past summer was the first time I've ever watched it in the Olympics where I gave a crap because I didn't really know about the sport to begin with. And the guy, Christian Blumenfeld, who won the Olympics from Norway, and now I get to follow him. He does Ironman races. He's winning all these races. He's trying to break the record for the fastest full Ironman competition. That dude, I just raced in, I think, Oregon. I had just done one of my races, and we were sitting at the bar, me, Christine, and Ian Larios, actually. So my girlfriend and Ian watching, and it was on TV. And just the speed, I had just slogged through some race, and I'm watching these guys run, just epic, to the point where he's throwing up and got wheelchaired off afterwards. So seeing a guy push himself like that for a dream come true, that definitely inspired me.
You guys are freaks. I don't know how you do it, Paul.
Man.
I don't know how you do it, Paul.
Yeah,
you are. I can't say the word, but you're a sick effort.
We're going to go run these hills here in LA soon. So
let's say it on YouTube.
All right, next one. Phoebe Peels. Hopefully I didn't say anything bad there. Do you guys groom your own beards?
Wow. I'm going to come out front, and I think this is going to surprise a lot of people. When it comes to grooming, like the trimming, I don't. We've talked about this, Paul. If I'm just going to trim my mustache and get my lines, I'll do that. But when it comes to groomming and shaping the beard, my guy, Michael Gutierrez here in Spokane does, he does a pretty dang good job. We've talked about this, Paul, because you've been like, hey, do you trim your beard yourself? How do you get it to look like that? I was like, nah, it's tough, dude. I can do it good on this side, but when I have to switch and go left-handed,
it is tough.
I might fight southpaw, but I do everything with my right hand, and that's a tell for everybody. So You're welcome. Any future opponents, but yeah, yeah, it's just tough. It's hard. It's not that easy.
Yeah, I'd say I 90% do it myself, but I've messed it up. I've had it been rough before. I love when I go to a barber where that's part of their thing is really shaping up the beard. It just makes it look so much cleaner, and you can have it still be, nice and full like this and like yours is. But when they can just fade in the sideburns a little bit, give it some levels. But I mainly do it myself. Yeah.
If I just did it with one length, if I just clip the thing on the trimmers and just, do it like that, yeah, I'll do it. But when it comes to
I'll sit there and I'm getting all the extra little hairs and stuff. Like I go just over the top
I always got
of
a lot of length. I always got a lot of length, Paul. I would have always been interested to see how you would look if you just let it fly a little bit.
I've had it pretty.
Well, Mike, you've had it that big?
Not quite yours right now, but close.
I think you need to play. You need to land a roll.
It's not aerodynamic, Michael.
They need to make you cast in a roll where you have to grow a full big.
This is a very long beard conversation.
Anyway, let's go.
I'm passionate about my beard. I'm sorry, Reach.
Jamal, do you fight? Speaking of throwing up, by the way, do you fight on an empty stomach or a full stomach?
You lead the charge.
Don't fight on a full stomach. But you definitely fight with calories in you. I do. So what I would do is I think Ian's thing was like 3 hours before your match, he would have your last meal, 3 or 4 hours, something like that, so that you could kind of pass everything if you needed to, or if things weren't sitting right. But you have a big meal with a lot of carbs, pretty clean and simple. It'd be like chicken and rice, but made to taste a little better. And then I would eat like honey packets or like an energy gel and some bananas and things like that, kind of in the locker room, maybe some pretzels with some salt to get ready for the fight, but never a full stomach, never an empty stomach either. Like you don't want to be starving yourself, but.
Oh yeah, that's a tricky thing. Cause I've worked, I kind of do the same thing. I've worked with Lockhart and Leith before. So I'm pretty sure Ian was one of my guys for one of my fights. And yeah, usually 3 hours before it's the last meal. And sometimes I know I need to eat that meal and I kind of got to force it down, but I think my nerves kind of fill my stomach a little bit on fight day.
Yeah.
But I always get that meal down. Same thing as you, a banana, some honey, like a gel packet. But a funny story. I heard Chad Mendez, Chad, and maybe some people around watching the show don't know Chad Mendez, fought for the interim featherweight championship at one point in his career. But I literally watched his corner man when he was down in the locker room in Milwaukee, buy him 3 full meals from concessions at the arena. Justin Buckles did. He was like, yeah, dude, Chad, like he wolfs food like every hour. Like that guy is just like right before he walks out, he's eating like a full sub sandwich. Like I'm like, dude, I can imagine.
Feel so full. Yeah, no way.
Yeah, I guess you need to throw a lot of wood on that fire to keep it burning.
I'll bet you do.
Safe to say that. Yeah, I see what you did there.
Perfect segue.
Anyway.
Perfect segue here. Final question.
Yeah.
Dante Woodbeck
says,
have you ever watched the fights while at a fancy dinner?
Oh yeah. I don't give a crap where I'm at. So if the fights are on, they come up on my phone. It doesn't matter. Even if I'm not even supposed to watch them, like I'll like sneak away, like, oh, I gotta run to the bathroom real quick, and I'll like pull my phone out and like sit in the lobby, and like I don't care where I'm at. Fights, this is my job. I have to watch these fights. I have to be ready to work on any given Saturday, no matter where I'm at.
So it's funny. I watched one of the pay-per-views recently at a friend's wedding, and this Saturday I will be at a wedding. My cousin is getting married. Shout out to him, Brendan. And I'll be at a wedding on Saturday, but it's a pay-per-view and it's late. And it's close to my house in Delaware. So I may actually be able to get home for the main card, but I'm going to be watching the preview sneaky on the phone, getting.
You got it. Yeah. You got to do it, Paul. It's a must-see card.
I've watched the fights everywhere where everybody else could basically not exist. But hey, anyway, that's it for us, guys. 271 this weekend, pay-per-view, buy it, watch the prelims, do all that. Michael will be there. We'll be back next Tuesday to unpack all this stuff and talk about who's champion and maybe who's next in line and how the heavyweight division is doing. Thank you, guys.
And one more thing, Paul. I hate to interrupt you. I've been interrupting you a little bit the show, but I got to remind you guys, 8:50 Central Time, weigh-in show, UFC YouTube channel. Tune in 10 minutes before the fighters step on the scales. You don't want to miss it. Bang, bang. Pow, pow. Oh.